We thought we'd seen everything when New Horizons flew past Pluto 10 years ago. Instead, Pluto stumps scientists more and more every year. A material hiding in plain sight, glittering like ordinary frost, yet matching nothing science has ever recorded. Right now, it's lying on the surface of Pluto, 3 billion miles away. The James Webb Space Telescope keeps finding things down there that nobody can explain, and the strangest arrived this year with a confession built into its scientific title, an unidentified absorption feature. Unidentified, meaning nobody on Earth can tell you what it is. Imagine holding something in your hand that no one on Earth can name. But that unnamed material is just the newest riddle on Pluto. And honestly, not even the one that hits hardest. Because 10 years after we supposedly finished exploring it, this little world is more baffling than the day we arrived. So let's do what New Horizons started and walk across it, starting with the thing that stares back from every photo of Pluto you've ever seen. Parts of Pluto's most famous feature are younger than the human race. Not younger than the pyramids, younger than our species. That feature is the heart, that bright, pale plane that stares back from every photo. Its left lobe is Sputnik Planitia, a glacier of frozen nitrogen the size of Texas, filling an ancient crater. It looks eternal, frozen, still, dead. So how can any part of it be young? Across that entire plane, New Horizons found something missing: craters. In a solar system that has been pelted by rock for billions of years, this one region is perfectly smooth. The only way that happens is if the surface is being erased and remade from below. And that's exactly what the heart does. Warm nitrogen ice rises, colder ice sinks, like the surface of soup barely at a simmer, but on a scale of miles and a clock of geology. About every 500,000 years, the surface here is renewed, which is why parts of it are younger than we are. Nobody fully knows what keeps it running. A ball of ice this small, this far from the sun, has no business staying warm enough to move at all. That is wonder number one. We are just getting started. Now back to that substance you could hold in your hand, the one nobody can name. In case you're wondering what it looks like, it doesn't look like anything. It's most likely blended invisibly into the frost, wearing the exact same glitter as ordinary ice. You could be holding it and never know. Here is how we even found something invisible. Every material bends light in its own signature way, a fingerprint, and Webb reads that fingerprint straight off Pluto's surface. Methane answered, nitrogen answered, carbon monoxide answered. And then, at one exact wavelength, the light simply went missing. No substance in any catalog on Earth raised its hand. 5.11. The team spent months failing to explain it away. It's real. It could have been lying there for 4 billion years, in the dark, with no name. But Pluto wasn't even the world where this line first appeared. The same missing light turned up on a world that could not be more different. Titan, Saturn's giant moon, bigger than the planet Mercury, wrapped in air denser than Earth's. A world where methane falls as rain and fills seas, the largest, Kraken Mare, wider than the Caspian Sea, brimming with liquid natural gas. A lake you could pour into your car, if your car ran at 290 degrees below zero and you didn't mind the commute. Its surface hides under a permanent orange smog, except at one wavelength, where a keyhole opens through the haze. Webb looked through it and found the same silent line at 5.11, rising from Titan's ground. But before you blame the telescope, two separate instruments aboard Webb record the exact same missing light. How strange is that? Pluto and Titan share almost nothing, One a naked deep freeze near 400 degrees below zero, the other a factory of weather 200 degrees warmer under a thick sky. The last two worlds that should ever match, and yet both carry an unidentified signature at almost exactly the same wavelength. Which means this isn't a Pluto accident. It seems to be something the outer solar system does again and again, and we have never once caught it in the act. Hold that, because it comes back. There is something on Pluto, something famous, and we still can't explain it. Its unmistakable rusty red color. Along Pluto's equator runs a band of deep red. The largest stretch, informally called Cthulhu, wraps more than a third of the way around the planet. For years, we thought we had this one solved. High in the atmosphere, sunlight breaks methane apart. The fragments clump into reddish organic dust and snow down, painting the ground over billions of years. We were so confident, we cook that same red dust in laboratories on Earth. And when scientists held their laboratory red against the real spectrum of Cthulhu, it didn't match. We can simulate the surface of a world 3 billion miles away, but we can't reproduce the paint, which means our models of Pluto's chemistry are missing something real. And there's a second puzzle underneath. The haze falls on the whole planet, evenly, endlessly. So why is Pluto painted in patches and stripes instead of one uniform coat? Nobody has a confirmed answer. Pluto's most recognizable trait was refusing to be red long before Webb ever showed up. Then Pluto turns the mystery inside out. This time, the red didn't necessarily fall from the sky. It may have come from below. Deep parallel canyons, Virgil fossae, run for hundreds of miles across the surface, and along those cracks, New Horizons found something that stops planetary scientists in their tracks. Water ice, stained red, carrying the unmistakable signature of ammonia. Every word of that is strange. Ammonia shouldn't be there at all, so its presence suggests the material was exposed or deposited relatively recently in geological terms. Ammonia is antifreeze. It keeps water liquid at temperatures that should lock it solid. And this red is not the equator's red. Its makeup looks different. A second, separate red on the same world. Put it together, and the picture is astonishing. Liquid water, laced with antifreeze, may have risen from a reservoir deep inside Pluto, possibly the buried ocean scientists think is down there, and bled out through these cracks, staining the surface as it froze. Not fallen from the sky, pushed up from within. On a world 3 billion miles from the sun, something underground may have stayed warm enough and wet enough to reach the surface. Right now, Pluto is slowly painting its own moon. Charon, Pluto's giant companion, half its size, locked in a silent dance a few thousand miles away, has a deep red stain smeared across its north pole. And that color doesn't belong to Charon. It belongs to Pluto. Methane is constantly leaking off the top of Pluto's atmosphere and drifting across to Charon. There, through a polar night that lasts more than a century, the stolen gas freezes onto the surface, and radiation slowly bakes it into reddish organic gunk. One world quietly staining another with the air it can't hold on to. But that raises a bigger question, because if Pluto is bleeding its sky into space, how much is it losing? And the answer right now is one of the strangest things happening in the solar system. Between 2021 and 2023, Pluto's atmospheric pressure dropped by 16%. The first time we've ever measured its sky beginning to fall. And here's what makes that backwards. For the previous 30 years, Pluto's atmosphere did the exact opposite of what it should. As Pluto drifted farther from the sun, the sky should have been freezing and thinning. Instead, the pressure tripled. The reason is a strange kind of lag. On an orbit 248 years long, Pluto's seasons run decades behind the sunlight. So even as it pulled away, the ground kept exhaling and the sky kept growing. Now, finally, it has started to turn. And nobody can agree on how far it goes. As Pluto keeps receding into the dark, its nitrogen should keep freezing out of the air and snowing down onto the surface. Some models say the sky collapses almost completely within decades. Others say the Great Heart Glacier keeps breathing out just enough to survive the 200-year winter. A world slowly losing its sky, and we still can't tell whether it ever fully holds its breath. The atmosphere it's shedding is the same one still drifting across to paint Charon red. But Pluto's sky isn't only leaving, it's also secretly building something, the very substance we started with. Pluto's blue haze isn't just scenery. Webb showed that those haze particles control the temperature of the entire atmosphere, heating and cooling it as they rise and fall. No other known planetary atmosphere is dominated by haze in quite this way. Pluto runs its own private kind of climate, a new one, in Webb's own words. And that same haze is a chemical factory. Up there, methane is cracked apart and rebuilt into heavier and heavier organics, which drift down and settle onto the ground. The same process running on Titan, on the far side of the solar system. Two worlds running the same factory, shipping the same product down to the surface. And that unnamed substance, 5.11, could be rolling off this very production line. And if a fingerprint we can see but can't name sounds impossible, it has happened before. That catalog we match light against once had a famous hole in it. In 1868, astronomers found a yellow line in the sun that belonged to no element on Earth, a substance that seemed to exist only in the sky. They named it helium. For 27 years, it was a line with no owner, until a chemist finally caught it in a lab, and it became the gas in every birthday balloon. But some lines never get their name. In 1919, a young graduate student named Mary Lee Heger noticed dark lines in a star's light that matched no known atom, no known molecule. She was the first person to stare into a darkness that is still not solved a century later. Today, they're called the diffuse interstellar bands, more than 600 unidentified fingerprints written into starlight across the whole galaxy, and only a tiny handful have ever been tied to a specific carrier. Helium, one unknown line solved in 27 years, and now the same kind of silence lying on the ground of two worlds right next door. Unidentified sounds like failure, but every substance in every textbook was unknown once, and someone was the first to meet each one. The gas in a birthday balloon was once an unexplained yellow line that skeptics called an error. An unknown isn't a gap in the universe, it's the universe holding out something new, waiting for us to catch up. And this one is probably not stopping at two worlds. Nitrogen, methane, deep cold. That recipe is the default out there. Triton, Eris, Make-Make, 100,000 frozen worlds we have never truly looked at. 10 years ago, we flew past Pluto and thought we were closing the book. Instead, Pluto handed us a page in an alphabet we haven't learned. And somewhere on that little world, an unnamed substance is still waiting for the first person to truly hold it. Not unknowable, just unread. So far. There is more to explore. See you beyond the stars.